I'll be your trainer for whole this bootcamp. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. Just say yes or no.
Yes, sir.
Great. So, let's start. Let me share my screen. So guys, you can, turn off your videos and audio during this session. And we will have towards the end of the session, we will have question and answer sessions where you can unmute yourself and ask your questions. So let's start. So guys, let me know once everyone sees able to see my screen. So I'll be your presenter for this bootcamp. So we will be working together for all these 3 weekends, starting from today. So let me introduce myself. I am Syed Asif. So I have 8 years of experience into information technology industries, and from past few years, like 4 years, I've been working on to cloud computing. My major focus is Microsoft Azure, and the secondary focus is on Google Cloud Platform. So I have these certifications, which tells about my expertise onto Azure. So let's quickly move on to the agenda, what we are going to do this during this bootcamp. So we would gonna cover, I assume that everyone is new to cloud computing. Guys, mute yourself, so that we can avoid the disturbance. So in what we'll do, I'll assume everyone is basic, beginner to cloud computing. So we'll start with the introduction to cloud computing. What is cloud computing? Why cloud computers are come? And how was the traditional infrastructure before cloud computing? And what are the benefits of cloud computing? And the deployment models, service models. Then we'll quickly jump into Azure's introduction. What is Microsoft Azure? What are the services Microsoft Azure provides? So this would be the first module. The second module would be the identity access management services of Microsoft Azure. We will see how users, groups, service principals, interact with the Azure services and with the Azure, Microsoft environment altogether. Then the third module would be covering the compliance and governance perspective of Microsoft Azure, how Microsoft Azure helps the IT companies to govern their IT infrastructure and be compliant to all the IT certificates or to the industry standards. Then in the fourth module, what we'll do is, we're going to cover the storage services of Microsoft Azure, where we will be, learning about the blob storage, the page storage, the Azure file share services. Then next we'll jump onto Azure virtual machines, which is a very good topic. We would be understanding how Windows and Linux virtual machines are created. We will also understanding how the service call availability sales sets, virtual machines scale sets, how you can connect to virtual machines, what you can do, how can scale up, scale down, all those things we are going to learn in virtual machines. Then we would be going ahead and learning about the virtual network, which is nothing but your private network in Azure. We will learning how this works, how to configure it, how to maintain it, how to troubleshoot it, and how we can do external connectivity with our on-premise environment or with some with another virtual network. The last module what we are going to cover in this bootcamp would be about the disaster recovery and how you continue your business during the disaster and how Azure helps that. So there are certain services like Azure Backup Service, Azure Site Recovery, which help us achieving the BCDR strategy for our organization. So we will be learning about that. So how I have break this agenda is, this bootcamp is of 3 weekends. So on the first week, which starts from today, we'll cover the cloud computing and Azure introduction today. And then next day, tomorrow, we will be going through the identity and access management. Okay. The next week, we will be doing governance and compliance, Azure storage, and virtual machines. And the last week would be, we'll be doing virtual network and disaster recovery on Azure. So I hope everything is clear till now. So before we start, right, what I would want you guys to to introduce yourself with your name and what are you currently doing. A short one-liner introduction would be enough. So I'll mute myself. You guys can start speaking now.
Hi, this is Shanawaz Hussain. I am from Hyderabad. I used to work with Dell Computers.
and I was into hardware sales and account management for the medium business of UK clients.
Great.
Currently, I'm in Canada right now, so I know about PSF network since long time through Hamad, and I was very much following up on the training sessions and everything. So this time I got an opportunity to join you guys, and I'm sure that it is going to be exciting. Thank you.
Great. Welcome aboard.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Mohammad Abdul Muqeed. I am a data scientist at Alagi Software Solutions. Yeah, I've been a part of PSF since a couple of years now. So I've seen this and I was really excited to and looking forward to this.
Great.
Thank you.
Welcome. Yeah.
Hi guys, my name is Hamad and I work for Dell Technologies. And I was very much excited when I saw that PSF has organized this Azure training. This is one of the uh, like trending things. So I thought, okay, it would be really good for me to upskill myself in this. So I've joined.
Great. Great. Welcome, Hamad.
Hello all, my name is Mudassir, Muhammad Mudassir Uddin. I am currently working in Hyderabad at the SAP space, and I just wanted to learn how Azure, how the cloud computing scenario is for SAP. So I wanted to get into that domain. That's why looking forward to this session actually.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, this is Prasad. Currently, I'm working with Infosys as a middleware developer. So I have to upskill my knowledge. So that's why I joined here.
Welcome, Prasad.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Aisha Fatima. Currently, I'm working with Salesforce. What draws me towards Azure is I wanted to learn about a different technology apart from Salesforce, and that's the reason I'm here. And I'm glad that we have this online training because attending the training physically was a little difficult for me. So I think this is a very good opportunity. Looking forward for many more in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Aisha. Thank you. So, anyone else?
Hey, good morning. This is Muhammad Javed Ali, and I'm just looking to learn more about Azure now. So basically, I'm from Hyderabad and working in Hyderabad itself.
Great. Welcome, Javed.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have like 12 participants and we just got intro of 6. So others, can you please help us introducing yourself? Okay. Okay, guys. Thanks a lot for introducing you guys. I'm very much delighted to meet you all virtually. So I have seen, you all are from diverse industries and experienced. So even then, I would like to start it as a basic conversation with, few of our participants are very new to cloud, and few are already doing some type of cloud, and people are into SAP and into infrastructure management. So great to have all of you on this training. So I hope I will be able to meet your expectations. So with that, let's start. So let's start with cloud computing introduction. So before cloud, so the first thing we have to understand is why there is a big paradigm shift now towards cloud. We've been doing IT from past 60 years, 50 years, but now why cloud? Why is there so much demand for cloud? Why everyone is thinking of cloud? Why is this super skill in the market now? Why is everyone moving? Even SAP is moving to cloud. SAP was a hot skill a few years back, but now it's cloud. Even data scientists are doing everything on cloud. Even the IT folks are now supporting cloud infrastructure. Why? So to understand cloud, we have to understand the traditional IT infrastructure what we had. So before, let's take an example of an enterprise. So let's start with Amazon. No, let's do justice to Microsoft. Let's not go with Amazon. Let's go with Flipkart. Let's take an example of Flipkart. So guys, my question to you guys is, Flipkart is a e-commerce website. So what do you think Flipkart has their Indian IT infrastructure so that you are able to purchase, products from their website. Can anyone help me? Few of the, IT infrastructure components was what Flipkart has in their data center. So what do you require, actually to run a big website like Flipkart?
Basically, you require a server, proper storage network, connections, networking, and of course, the internet in order to actually maintain the data and whatever browsing is happening on the website, creating and customers would start creating database for you by entering their details. So they'll start doing those inputs, and it is very critical to maintain that particular data. So
Yeah.
that's how it would work. A traditional network would work.
Yeah. So thanks a lot for that. So that's correct. So basically, you require these, things. So you require an hardware. So you require the software to, communicate with that hardware. You need network to, connect all those hardware. You need data center and storage facilities. You need electricity. You need power cooling systems. You need wires. Then you need, you need to access those things. You need, wireless and wireless devices. So you need all those things to run. So when you talk about software, you have the operating system, then you have the database, then you have the middleware, then you need to do the biggest thing is, you need to have the money to invest in that. And you also need to have to secure it, right?
Yeah.
So this was a typical infrastructure. So we have multiple components within the network, multiple components within the storage. So you had all those components. So this is how the typical IT infrastructure even works today. So, basically why we have evolved from this typical infrastructure to cloud compute is because of these three things. We have wide, adoption of internet now. We have internet even in mobile phones, even in remote areas, we have, internet connection. And because of Geo now, we used to get 1 GB in one previously, but now we're having 1.5 GB in our mobile phones every day. And the other is about the service oriented architecture. So we'll not deeply dive into what service oriented architecture is, just understand it high level. This is how these services are communicating right now within the IT infrastructure. So, and you can also understand in a way how the people process the data is accessed and communicated using the services. And especially the model on which this SOA works is on web services. Because of web services model, the service oriented architecture is easily available for us. And the important thing, the third important technology which has enabled us to move to cloud computing is virtualizations. Now we are able to extract the physical hardware like the CPU, the RAM, and the cores. And traditionally what we used to do is we used to take, let's say if you want to host a web server, we used to take a big machine and and with lot of RAM, CPU, hardware, sorry, not hardware, hard disk and all those things. And we used to host one single website in that. So the CPU utilization, the utilization of the resources were not completely, they were very less. I have seen a report, the utilization of those infrastructure was only up to 20%, but people were doing capacity planning and they were wasting lot of resources. So that is where when virtualization came into picture, that abstracted the underlying physical components of a server and they gave them virtually. So now on a single server, we are hosting multiple, web services, any web applications. So how this, things worked, uh, you know, during we had this emergence of data center in 1940, 1950. Then the rise of time sharing happened. Now, in 1980s, we had the distributing computing and the grid computing. We had clusters. If you are from database background, we managed, we distributed our, services. We had application server on a different machine, database server on a different machine, middleware on a different machine. And we also had grid computing. Grid computing is similar to cloud computing. The only thing is these were not given to normal public. They were just like private cloud, but they were not cloud, but they were distributed. Okay. Then the rise of PC in 1980s, Microsoft, Apple, they all started to give personal desktops to people. And then we had the client server architecture. So all these things, in 1944, Salesforce, I think in 1944, 1994, Amazon started, then we had Salesforce, and in 2006, AWS came into the market, giving their elastic cloud computing services to us, to the normal general public. So what is cloud computing? Cloud computing, has made the world a smaller place and a more connected one. Now, we can sit in India and access the resources which are in US just with internet. Not, we do not require a lease line or VPN or any other services to, access resources in US. And the one of the biggest trend in technology over the last decade has been shifting to cloud computing, which are aware of. So let's, in simple terms, what is cloud computing? Cloud computing is actually a metaphor for internet. So in another term, you can call it is someone else's computer. You access it remotely. That's all. NIST is an National Institute of Standard based out of America. So they were the first organization which gave a definition to cloud computing. This definition has evolved. I suggest all of you guys to note down this special publication number, and once we are done, you guys go and have a look at this documentation. So according to NIST, cloud computing model which enables on-demand network access to shared resources, computer resources that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management or service provider effort interaction. So basically what they have, for a service to be called as cloud computing, they should have these characteristics. So if they are able to have these characteristics, then that is a cloud computing service. So first is on-demand self-service. So whenever you want, you should be able to provision anything and use any resource without, automatically and without requiring human interaction with the service provider. So, let's say with Amazon Web Service or Microsoft Azure, you will not contact the person, I want to host a VM, please, host me. No, you will not do that. You will directly go, you log in and you will create your own virtual machine. Okay. And you should be able to access it from anywhere. Okay. From your mobile phones, laptops, on workstations to do that self-service, on demand configuration. And resource pooling. So what this basically means in simple term, you would be able to use the resources, or which are shared with other people. Okay. So in a single physical server, PSF can have a virtual machine and I can have a virtual machine. Okay. And it can be from any country or any state. Okay. And I can use any services also. And rapid elasticity. I should be able to scale in and scale out, scale up and scale down anytime, whenever I want. I can do this manually, or I want to do it automatically. I should be able to do it. And measure services. So what this means is I pay only for what I consume. Okay. So and there are meters, just like our electricity bill, right? We pay for what we use, right? So similarly, you will pay. And apart from that, you will be able to monitor, control and report what you are doing. And you should have, abstraction, understanding what's the cloud provider is doing and what you are doing. So what's the top benefit of cloud computing? The first and foremost, the people move to cloud computing is to save cost. So how are we saving cost here? So let's say in the traditional infrastructure, right? Let's say you want to host a website, you have to buy the server first, right? Then you have to buy the software to install, to work, run on server. Then you want to have the hardware and everything. So this is just the, about the hardware, but you need electricity to run that server. You need air conditioning to, to make that, server cool. And you also need a resource to, maintain that server. So in this way, when moving to cloud computing, you are giving all this responsibility to the cloud provider, and you are just managing, you're just focusing on your business. So in that way, you're saving cost. Other is high speed. Let's say, data scientists, they require a GPU machine to do modeling, right? So for you to host a GPU machine, TensorFlow machine on your on-premise, you require a high-speed infrastructure, and that again involves cost. So with cloud computing, you can just run an ML machine onto any cloud provider and use it for some time and close that. Okay. So in that way, you get the high speed and you'll also save the cost. As I said, scalability, elasticity, you should always be able to scale in, scale out, scale up, and scale down whenever you want, and you should have the elasticity to do it. And you can have your database server in one location in Hyderabad and your application server in Mumbai, and you can have a disaster location in Chennai or somewhere else. And reliability, and all these should be reliable, right? You want your users to consume your services. Let's say you are a business, you cannot what you say, it should be reliable. You cannot have, when someone is trying to connect to your resources or services, they should always be able to do that. They should be able to do whenever they need it, right? And performance, always, you should always be good for, you should have good performance. And the important thing is, your employees should be productive when they are working with those resources, right? So in terms of management of those resources, everything should be productive. And security, let's say you want to secure your environment, right? You have to spend so much of money. So just moving to cloud computing, you're already secured by default, but there are things which you manage and which the service provider manages, that you have to, that you'll understand in the later stages. So NIST has also, characterized, the services, but they also helped us with, for a service to be called as cloud computing, they should have these models. Okay. So there are two models in terms of cloud computing. One is the deployment model, other is service model. So in the deployment models, we have three types of models. One is called public cloud, the private cloud, and hybrid cloud. Okay. So what is public cloud? Public cloud is defined as computing service offered by third-party provider over the public internet. So basically Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, and Oracle Cloud, these are all public clouds. Private cloud refers to a model of computing where IT services are provisioned over a private infrastructure exclusively by a single business or organization. Okay. So let's say you're a big organization, you have your own cloud, then that's nothing but your private cloud. And the technologies which have enabled this are VMware, Microsoft Hyper-V, and OpenStack. And hybrid is nothing but a combination of private and public cloud. So this is very common these days. And in future, there will be one more service model which will be called as multi-cloud. Where you will have, which is already going on, but it has not come into the market as of now. Exclusively, big organization all doing. It's called multi-cloud strategy, where you have where you will use all the you will have multiple public cloud vendors, you will have multiple private cloud vendors. These service models, these are the services in the cloud computing, and NIST has divided them into three models. One is called the IS, which stands for infrastructure as a service. Other is the PaaS, which is called platform as a service, and SaaS, which is called software as a service. So when we usually think of cloud, right, most of the product in cloud are software as a service. I have listed out some services which are called software in the next slides. So, as I said, most cloud computing services fall into these. I have written four. There is one more service model which is now called serverless, but you understand about these three basic things, which is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So infrastructure is, you provision infrastructure over the internet and you manage it over the internet. So like virtual machines, storage, networks from the third party provider or the public cloud, you manage them over the internet and you provision them over the internet. Platform as a service, basically, this is a computing service that supplies on-demand environment for developing and testing and delivering of software applications. Okay, you will not be managing the underlying infrastructure here. You will just be responsible for data and the code here. Software as a service, these are nothing but the softwares which you consume. You will not manage anything, you will just consume here. Okay. The other model is serverless model. It is overlapping with PaaS, but it is different than PaaS, which we will learn in the later stages. I'll just pass on as of now. So when it comes to management, right, traditionally in the on-premise infrastructure, the organization managed everything. They managed the networking, they managed storage, they managed the servers, the patching, the OS, the virtualization, the middleware, the runtime, the data, everything an organization has to manage. But if an organization moves to public cloud and they take infrastructure as a service, then these things are managed by the service provider. The networking, storage, servers, virtualizations are managed by the the service provider, and they are responsible for for you for security of all those things. And you will be managing the OS. In terms of OS, you will be managing the software upgrades, the OS patches, everything will be managed by you. Same will be the case of middleware. You will manage the runtime, you will manage the data, and you will manage the application altogether. Okay. In platform as a service, the service provider will manage everything from networking to runtime, and you will be managing the application and the data and the code of that applications. And in software as a service, as I said, you will be just using the software, and everything is managed by the service provider. But one caveat you have understand to remember is the data. So in software as a service model, you are also responsible for how the data is accessed. Okay. So this we will learn when we understand this shared responsibility model, when we learn about security. Okay. So I have just noted on a brief differences between the on-premise and cloud computing. You guys are already aware of this, but let's, for the sake of this slide, we'll just walk through that. So, as I said earlier, on-premise is higher pay, okay, and less scalability. In cloud computing, you just pay for what you use. You scale up, you will pay more, and you scale down, you will pay less. Okay. A lot huge spaces for servers. So for servers, you have to have a big space in your organization. You have to do the printing. Okay. When you go to cloud computing, you're not required to do that, right? And you have to appoint a team of hardware and software maintenance engineers in your organization to do that, and which is not required in terms of cloud computing. And for data security is very poor. Okay. And in cloud computing, you have better data security standards. And when in terms of disaster recovery, to do disaster recovery on on-premise environment, you have to go to a lot of steps. Okay. You have to do a lot of things, but in disaster recovery in cloud computing is very easy. On-premise is less flexible. As I said, when you buy a hardware, you do a lot of capacity planning, and you buy the hardware, in one time, and the hardware changes, the technology changes. So you're not flexible in terms of, flexibility in terms of technology on your on-premise system. If you have to become, flexible there, you have to again invest you some more money. In cloud computing, day one you can use one machine of Intel. The next day you can go to use GPU machines. So that flexibility you have in cloud. And automatic updates are not there. You have to manually go and do the updates. Here all the updates are automatic. And in terms of collaboration, you will not get good collaboration. There are certain collaboration service, but they are not as good as the cloud. Okay. Let's say, for example, SharePoint, right? SharePoint it's a Microsoft product for collaboration. It is there on premise also, but a lot of development and maintenance is required. And data cannot be accessed remotely very easily. For you to access data, you have to have VPN service or lease line service, or you have to have some other kind of service. You have to at least have a remote desktop to connect. Right? In cloud, you just have a browser, you open and you can connect your data. And implementation, previously to host a web application, I will give you one example. An SAP infrastructure from an on-premise environment.
We can't hear you, Asif, actually.
Asif, we can't hear you.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Sorry for that. Okay. So I was talking about the implementation time, right? So we had a customer, who implemented SAP on their on-premise infrastructure. So for that implementation, it took 12 months for them to do that implementation on premise. But this year they moved to a Google Cloud platform, and they were able to do that implementation in 3 months. So you see, there's 9 months difference in terms of implementation. And the other thing, but how are cloud service, companies are able to do this? How are they able to give us all these benefits? This is because of economics of scale. So these big organizations like Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, they are leveraging the benefits of economic of scale. So with this, they are able to, pass on these benefits to us at lower price. Okay. So this is nothing but, they have already a big infrastructure which is just lying. Because as I said earlier, right, the capacity was not utilized completely. So now what Amazon did, this was invented by Amazon Web Services, right? So they saw that, they had huge capacity which was not in use. So their, technical officer, CTO, he came up with the plan stating, let's give these resources to, outside organization on rent basis. So that's how the cloud computing started. So if you can say this infrastructure service basically was started by Amazon Web Services, and Google Cloud, Oracle, AWS, sorry, in Microsoft Azure, they all just followed AWS in this. The other important thing which you understand in terms of cloud computing is the expenditure in terms of capital expenditure and the operational expenditure. So, in CapEx, spending of money on physical infrastructure is upfront. Okay. So when I talk about capital infrastructure, I'm just talking about the on-premise infrastructure. Okay. So you will have the both capital infrastructure where you will be buying servers, you will doing capacity deploying, you'll spending a lot of capital. Then once you bought all those things, IT infrastructure, you will be spending again on the operations of it. That is called OPEX, the operational expenditure. But in cloud, you will not be having any capital expenditure. You will be just having the operational expenditure. So I've just listed out some of the capex computing cost. You'll have the server cost, the storage cost, the network cost, the security cost in terms of hardware, software, and licensing components. Okay. Then again, you will have for the backup, archive, for continuity and disaster recovery. You will be spending on hardware as well as software and on the licensing. Okay. But when you go to capex, you will be just paying for the licensing and leasing. You will not be spending for the hardware and the electricity and all those things on the data center. You will not be spending anything on that. You will be just spending on the licensing and on the customized features what we are using. So these are some of the cloud computing providers what we have in the market as of now. In terms of infrastructure service, you guys are aware. DigitalOcean is also a very good service provider, which is a very small but widely used. You have Alibaba Cloud. They are superb. In the worldwide, AWS leads, but in the APAC region, Alibaba leads the market. And you have the platform as a service also. So SAP Cloud Platform is one of that. Where you can. It's a platform as a service, and SAP is providing S/4HANA on cloud on Microsoft Azure. So these are some of the software as a service products, which we are already using. One of the big example what we are using is right now this Zoom. So Zoom is also a software service model where we are using their infrastructure to have this audio conferencing call. Apart from that, we've been using Gmail, Outlook, everything, right? So those all comes in software as a service model. So these are, I will share the desk. So these are few slides which I want you guys to go through and understand. This is the publication site where you will understand how NIST has differentiated the characteristics and delivery models. So this will basically give you a brief understanding how cloud computing works. So now Azure. So till now, any questions? Till now, till the introduction. Great. So let's begin. What's Microsoft Azure?
Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to a clarification, like how exactly it will be differentiating between the conventional method of having a network and migrating to cloud.
What do you see? I did not get your question. Can you be more specific on that? Because you have talked
to
about
be frank, see, there would be companies and the clients who would be into small and medium business, and for them, data security would be a more important thing. For an example, if it is an online website, like a flipkart.com, there where the data is completely critical for them because the customers would be entering card details and all. So how exactly the cloud computing migration would be easy for them or difficult for them to migrate completely?
So let's say as a Flipkart said, right? Flipkart, you would be entering, as you said, the data, the personal identification information, and you have the credit card information. So for these kinds of softwares, you would be requiring certain compliances. For example, for using online transaction, you have to have PCDISS compliance, right? For on-premise environment, if you have to do that, right, you have to do a huge task of doing that. PCI DSS compliance takes a lot of time. By moving on to any cloud service provider, you are already compliant with that, because these service providers have already invested the efforts and money to make their infrastructure PCI DSS compliance. And in terms of migration, all the service providers, and there are third-party tools which helps you migrate the data securely from your on-premise environment to the cloud provider, and you can have the seamless infrastructure there. Similar infrastructure what you had, with less efforts, you can have that into Azure. So give you a brief example, right? There is a company called Cloud Endure. So they were actually this company is acquired by AWS. So they have a very simple product. You just go and install that agent on the on-premise server, and you install the agent on the cloud agent, and that will seamlessly migrate exact state of that server onto cloud. So you have these kinds of services which can be used to migrate the data seamlessly and securely. First thing, during the migration, right? The important thing, you have to understand the infrastructure properly, and you have to plan the similar infrastructure onto the cloud. So when we move in the later stages, right? I will make sure we take a certain project and we start from the beginning. Okay, we understand what is the present infrastructure of the customer, and we'll try to replicate the same onto the cloud. Okay, I hope I was able to answer your question.
Yeah, thank you. You can move on.
Yeah. So Microsoft Azure is nothing but the cloud computing platform of Microsoft. That's nothing but their cloud. Okay, and Azure provides a global network of secure data centers where you can deploy your services into. Okay, so let's have a simple tour of Azure services. So these are some of the services which Azure has as of now. So this slide, which I'm showing is very, it's not updated, but most of the services which are there, it's already there. You have in terms of infrastructure service, which this course is all about. You have the compute, storage, and networking. And within compute, you have virtual machines, you have containers, Kubernetes. We will not be covering containers, Kubernetes in this course. We'll have a separate course for that in the later stages. And you have all the storage services, and you have networking, and you have all this platform as service. The easy way to go and find out all the services of Azure is to go to this Azure portal and know about all their products. In terms of compute, what Microsoft Azure provides, you have virtual machines where you can deploy Windows and virtual machines within seconds. You have Azure Kubernetes Engine. You have app services, which is a serverless website and application hosting service from Azure. You have dedicated host. This is not a VMs, Azure VMs for Windows and Linux, but dedicated physical server. Okay, and you have SQL Server virtual machines. SQL Server is the database of Microsoft. This is virtual machine scale set is nothing but the auto scaling and app service of Azure. If you are aware of AWS, it used to call auto scaling, right? The similar service you have, it's called virtual machine scale sets. You have Azure Spring Cloud. You have Azure Functions. You have Batch. So these are all the compute services. Then if you go to networking, you have Azure Virtual Network, you have Load Balancer, you have Application Gateway, you have VPN Gateway, you have Azure DNS, you have CDN, you have DOS protection, you have Traffic Manager, you have Express Route. Express Route is nothing but the least private connection for your organization to Microsoft Azure data center. And if you go to storage, you see disk storage for your virtual machines. You have this data lake, the data warehousing concept. You have file storage. You have Data Explorer. It's an application on your on-premise where you can just log into that and explore your data what you have in Azure. you have Azure NetApp Files, you have Azure Backup, you have Azure Blob Storage. So these are the storage services. So we will be covering this networking, compute and storage in this bootcamp. And other than this, would be the DR concepts I said earlier. So these are the few services I highly encourage you guys to go, in the, once we complete this and have a look at all the services what Microsoft Azure has to offer. So there are more than, as you see, there are more than 200 plus services what Microsoft is offering. So you can just have a look at this and understand all the services of Microsoft Azure. Sorry. So as I said, why Microsoft Azure? Okay, the biggest advantage of learning Microsoft Azure is even though AWS is the enterprise market, cloud enterprise market leader, but Azure is more competitive than AWS because I've been working in all the three cloud platforms. So Microsoft Azure is far less easier than compared to AWS and GCP, and you can start. It's very easy to learn, no hard work required, and most of the enterprises have adopted Azure right now. So you guys are already aware of that. People are moving away from AWS to Azure now.
Asif, I just have a doubt here. As you have said that Azure is much more reliable and much more user-friendly when compared to others. What exactly is the percentage of the market share he has captured till now? Hello?
Asif, we can't hear you.
I would request the moderator to pause the recording till the time the trainer is back.
Infrastructure is made of three things. One is geographies, and other is Azure regions, and other is availability zones. So what is geography? There are the geographical locations where Azure has its services available to its customers. As of now, there are 5 geographies. One is Americas, then Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia Pacific. So these are the 5 regions, 5 geographies, and within the geography you have regions. Okay, so Azure is made up of data centers located around the globe. Okay, and specific data centers aren't exposed to users directly. Instead, they are organized into regions. Okay, so a region is a geographical area on the planet containing at least one data center, but usually there are more than 3 data centers, and these are networked together with low latency networks. Okay, for example, let's say America is a region. In America, America is a geography. In America, you have various regions like East US, East US 2. So these are all the regions. And so I'm just sharing a slide. So these are all the available regions which are there, and there are some announced regions, and which are coming to soon. Like we have Northeast, Norway East, and Norway West, which are announced, which are not available right now. But these are all the regions which are available now. So in this, this is one region which is called Americas. So so this is one region. So in this region you have one geography of multiple regions. Then you have this region Europe. You have multiple regions. Then you have Asia, Africa and Middle East. Then Asia Pacific. So these are all the regions within the geographies. So as I said, geographies are divided towards the world. So each geography will have what you say regions in them. So geography is just a physical location. So each geography comes with the data residency and compliance needs. So let's say because of GDPR, the data of European region should not go outside the Europe. So that is the reason. So all the data within for the European customers will be within the Europe region. So as I said, there are five geographies which are broken up into Americas, Europe, Asia, Pacific, and Middle East. Each region belongs to a single geography and has specific service availability, compliance, and data residency rules. So availability zones. So what are availability zones? So as an organization, you want to ensure your services and data are redundant, and you want to protect them, right, in case of failure. So that is how, in Amazon, Microsoft Azure, you do that using availability zones. So availability zones are physical separate data centers within an Azure region. Okay, India is a region, right? In India, you have 3 availability zones, 3 regions also. Within the same region, you have different data centers. In India, you have 3 regions. One is West India, Central India, and South India. Within Western India, Central India, and South India, you will have more than one availability zones. So why are these availability zones required? For fault tolerance. During the disaster, you want your data to be available for you. Okay. So as we said, each availability zone is made up of 1 or more data centers equipped with independent power cooling. They will have independent power. Let's say, this is West India. In West India, we have 3 buildings. Okay. Building 1 is one availability zone. Building 2 is a second availability zone, and building 3 is a third availability zone. So each building will have its own separate power cooling system, separate electricity, and separate network. Okay, and these availability zones are interconnected with low latency network. Okay, you can have your application, let's say you have an application, you have this application active here, the similar active application can be active here. Okay, so you can do load balancing in that way. So these are some of the regions, supported regions in Azure. You have certain regions. The other concept which I have not listed in this deck is the regional pair. So what is regional pair? You can have regions as I said, we have 3 regions in India, right? So you can have a region pair. You can pair your Central India with South India for your disaster recovery strategy. This is about today's I just wanted to cover this. So let's see how let's do a practical and see the Azure portal, how it looks. The website, the URL which you have to go is portal.azure.com. Okay, we will create a free account. I'll just log into my account first. Then I hope you guys are aware, but I'll show you how you can create your own free trial account. So this is how Azure portal looks. Okay, so once you log in, this is how it looks. You have all the services which are available. You can navigate to services from this ellipsis. You can see all the available services from here. If you click all services, it will show you all the services which are available. Currently I am a free plan. Okay, so that is the reason it is asking if I want to upgrade here. You can we said, right, we had that we went to the website and we saw all the services, right? So these are all the services which are available in Compute. So you can have a look at this, and in the networking and in the storage you have all the services. The other way you can find out the services is about here. If I type virtual machines, I'll go to virtual machines. I can create virtual machines. Here I can do everything. And you can also directly go to documentation. I cannot emphasize more on documentation. If you really want to be good in Azure, this is where you guys have to spend a lot of your time. You should guys spend go through all the documentation about the services which are available in Azure. This and you can the other things which I wanted you guys to understand is about things like subscription. So any services within Azure, right, comes under a subscription. So let me help you out in understanding this. Okay, so when you create a Microsoft, when you try to buy anything from Microsoft, right, so Microsoft gives you a thing called service called Azure AD. So this is nothing but your tenant. Okay, I'm just writing down. This is also called tenant. you have to know this naming conventions. So tenant is nothing but your Active Directory. So Azure Active Directory and Windows Active Directory are completely two different products. This Active Directory, we will learn more about Active Directory tomorrow. So I just wanted to give you a brief about that now. So this Azure Active Directory is the tenant. Under this tenant, when you try to buy any service from Microsoft, the first thing Microsoft gives you for free is Azure Active Directory. So under this Active Directory, you will buy services like Microsoft 365, which was called Office 365 earlier. Then you will buy Azure, okay. Then you can buy, D365, which is Dynamics, and any other software service, cloud computing product. So whenever you open an account, right, whenever you try to buy something from Microsoft, first thing what Microsoft gives you is the directory. So if you see, this is my directory, okay. If I go to, I'll show you my directory name, Azure Active Directory. If I go to overview, so you see this Asif IT Outlook on Microsoft.com. This is nothing but my Azure Active Directory, and I have created this. I have bought this Azure subscription using my Microsoft account. So as you know, Khalil Bhai has already informed you guys to have a Microsoft account, which is an Outlook account, so that you can go and get a free Azure subscription. So when you subscribe, right, what Microsoft done is they create this Active Directory for you. Okay. So they have taken my email ID name as my directory tenant name, which you can, when you for an organization, you will be buying it through a vendor, like to a Microsoft partner. They will have their, what you say, company's name. For example, my company is Brio Technologies. So I have a tenant name of, brio.onmicrosoft.com. So you will create those kinds of tenant names. So under this tenant name, I said you will have all your purchases. So this directory will be, for your all your products, whether you are using Office 365, whether you are using Azure, whether you are Dynamics 365, your users, you will create the users here and give them access to the services what you want to give to them. For me, as I am the owner of this organization, I have all the services access. But when you delegate, when you are giving it to your users, you will give them permissions, what they have to access, what they should not access. You will do that. We'll do that tomorrow. We'll understand how the directory roles and everything works. So this is how Azure looks. You can, just play, go. And the other important thing, Azure, it's, as I said, right, it is very user friendly, very intuitive, basic, good UI. And you have these settings, if you want to, you have all these things which you can play around. I like this view. You have other views also if you want. You can try all those views. So very good UI. You can start, very easily. If you guys have seen AWS and GCP, you would definitely understand in terms of UI. Azure is quite easier when compared to any other cloud provider. So this is about the portal. So what you guys can do now, right? As a trial instance, you just go to Google, try say Azure trial. And the first link is where you go and create your free account. So it will give you 12 months. So for the first month, Microsoft will give you 13,300 rupees, which you have to explore in 30 days. In other cloud, this is where Azure is not good. It gives you only for 30 days. Other cloud providers give you for 1 year, but Azure gives you for 30 days. So you have to use this 13,000 rupees credit what Microsoft gives you within your 30 days. Within the 30 days, there are other free popular services which are free for 12 months, and there are some services which are free for lifetime. So you can go to this link and you can see what are available. If you see which products are free for 12 months, so you have this Linux virtual machine, which you can run for 750 hours. This is a B series machine, which is free of cost for 12 months. A very basic machine. You get only 1 core, 1 GB RAM, and you can have up to 2 64 GB hard disk. So you can just go through this website and see what is available for you, what is not available, and you have other 1300 credits which you can use, and during this training you can utilize it. So I hope you guys have a Microsoft account. and you will be able to create that. If you have any problems, you can contact me or you can contact Khalil. We will definitely able to help you in creating this. Okay, guys. So today, we'll wind up here. Tomorrow we will be going with the identity as a service. So in that identity service, we will learn about Microsoft Azure Active Directory. We learn about Microsoft Active Directory conditional access, then identity protection and privilege identity management. So we will learn about all these things. Very good topic, because no one beats Microsoft in terms of identity when it comes to identity and access management on cloud. They are very good services. We'll cover those tomorrow. So any questions till now here?
One question, Asif.
Yeah.
So you earlier showed portal.azure.com. So is that in this both pages different, or?
No, it's similar to that. Everything is on the azure.com only, but that's the easiest way to access the Azure console. This console.
Mm-hmm.
So there are two things. One is azure.portal.com, and one is portal.office.com. These are all used for this Office application, right? So they are both same. So if you see, this is my Office application. Let me log into my other account, which I'll show you. I have more privileges there.
So this is the portal page, or with which we can see the console, right?
Yeah.
The other one, the Microsoft page that you showed for the free trial. This is for?
This is just their website. But once you start, go to you sign up for Azure, right? They'll take you to they'll take you this login page, and once you do everything, you will go to azure.portal.com only directly. Portal.azure.com. So once you have signed up for this trial, you no longer required to go to this portal, azure.microsoft.com free trial. You can directly go to portal.azure.com and you can start using that.
Okay.
So this will directly take you to the Microsoft Azure account. So this is my official thing. Yeah. So I just wanted to I wanted you guys to show the directory synchronization. So as I said, right, we have seamless integration of Active Directory. We get Active Directory as the free service. So in Active Directory, we create users. So these users are synchronized between all these services, whether you are using Azure or whether you are using Dynamics 365, whether you are using Microsoft 365, which is nothing but Office 365, you will have all your users synchronized. Okay, you will see all the users which are there. So you see, this is my Office M365 admin center. So these are all my users, which I can manage directly from here. And this is my portal, okay. So how you can log into Microsoft? This is one way. Then you have the mobile application where you can directly log in from there. In mobile application, what you can do is very basic. The other is, there is one more application from App Store, which is called Azure Portal. I think I have installed it. So you can have that portal downloaded on your laptop, and you can directly log in from that app to your Azure portal. So I created this account for trial purpose very recently. So I have this application on my desktop. If I want to manage my Azure portal, I can do from there. So there are various ways you can log into Azure portal. So one is you directly go to portal.azure.com, or you go to Microsoft App Store and you download this Azure portal. So you just go to Microsoft Store and you will have that Azure portal there. So you can download that as well. If you are using Windows, you will have this option. You will have Azure portal.
And the normal basic architecture of the Azure services that we will be learning in the next sessions, right? Or
yeah, yes. We have divided, as I said, we have divided this in 3 weeks, right? So basically, I just wanted you guys to, if you are unable to understand the Active Directory concept, right? So it will be very difficult for you to give security things for the resources. So that is the reason I'll be spending the next day, complete day, in understanding the roles which are available for users with Active Directory and RBAC role-based access controls. So you have two roles when you are using Microsoft Azure. One are the AD roles, other are the RBAC roles. So we should have a clear understanding of those roles, so that in the next stages, when we go to virtual machines, storage accounts, and all those things, it will be easy for us, because security is a big part of Microsoft Azure. There are certain products which are available in Microsoft Azure in terms of identity and access management. So we will be covering all those things tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I am. We will be doing less of deck and PowerPoint. Tomorrow we'll be doing more of practicals. Yeah.
Asif, if we create a directly ID from portal.azure.com, would we be getting free subscriptions as well?
No, as I said, right, you have to go to Azure Trials page, and then you have to sign up. So before you do that, I suggest you go to outlook.com and create a Microsoft account if you do not have any. So first go and create that Outlook account, because Azure only takes Microsoft accounts to create that Azure subscription. You cannot use your Gmail or any other Yahoo Mail email IDs to do that. So first create an Outlook email ID. Outlook was Hotmail previously. If you already have Hotmail email, then you can still use it. If you do not have any, you then create an Outlook account and then go to the Azure trial page. As I said, right, you just go to Google and type Azure trial. The first link, Microsoft Azure free account. You sign up there with the the Outlook ID what you have created. So when you say sign up, it will ask you to log in, right? You log in and you give your account. I have already signed up, but I'll just show how. So the same. So it will take you to this page where you just fill in all the details, and they'll charge you 2 rupees for creating this. They'll not charge you unless you go and click the upgrade button. Okay, make sure you do not do that. Otherwise, they'll charge you for all the services after 1 month. Okay, or till your 1300s are lapsed, 13,000. So you have, I already have an account, so it is stating that I already have a free account. It is asking you to upgrade. So they'll ask you to give your details, your complete name, phone number. They'll send you a code on your mobile number. They'll ask you for your card details. Once you provide all those things, they'll charge you 2 rupees and they'll give you the Azure account for free. So basically they take credit cards, but if you have ICICI debit card, Axis Bank debit card, then you can any Visa debit card, then you will be able to create that account also. I do not have a credit card, but I have used my ICICI Bank debit card and I was able to create the free account.
So even for the free account, we need to provide those details, right?
Yes, we have to provide, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Asif, I have one question.
Sure.
As you previously mentioned that more number of companies are moving towards Azure from AWS and other vendors.
Yeah.
But what I have heard is Amazon is AWS provides more services, is more economic, and it's more secure than any other cloud provider. Then what could possibly be the reason for this moving of companies from them to Azure?
Okay, so I'll help you out in this way. AWS is still the market leader. Okay, because the reason AWS is still good, it is actually good. All the cloud providers are good. It's still the market leader because it has the head start. It started 5 years earlier to Azure, and GCP. GCP was earlier 4 years. But Azure came in 2010 and AWS came in 2006. So we as normal people, right, when we think about cloud, right, we only think of AWS because AWS was the organization which started this cloud computing infrastructure service things, right? They have more services even now. Microsoft is still in the second place. They have not, crossed AWS, and they are not going to do it in very recent time also. But when it comes to enterprise organization, right, the big organization, they have relied more on Azure than compared to AWS. AWS also has a lot of presence in enterprise organization. If you have followed the news, right, people are trying, moving their, let's say, Azure has special regions also, right, which I have not discussed, which are for government, right? They have special regions there. AWS does not have a good presence in China and Germany, but Microsoft has its own separate special regions for Germany and China, which in China it is managed by 21 Vianet, and in Germany it is managed by T Systems. And government cloud, Azure is the big leader. And in terms of region wise, Microsoft Azure has more regions when compared to any other cloud vendor, whether it's AWS and or GCP. And there is another thing called hybrid benefit, which only Microsoft has. Let's say if you want to use hybrid benefit in GCP and in AWS, right, you have to buy a dedicated host in AWS and in GCP. But in Azure, you can use a virtual machine, and you can have, these are like, higher. I know this may terms will, go out of on top of the head now, but I just wanted to ask the question came. So there are certain features, for Microsoft workloads, Microsoft is better than AWS and GCP, even though AWS has more experience of running Windows workloads on Azure, on AWS, but Azure is cheaper when compared to running Windows workloads. And in terms of Linux, I'll just give you a few examples, right? We'll just do it right away if you guys have time. So let's go to the calculator, right, of both of them. So I'll go to, we'll calculate the AWS cost for India region first for a simple VM. Okay. So we'll add a VM v2 instance. I'm taking a, let's say, there are again different VMs, right? So we'll take a normal VM, which is called T2 Micro, which are basic VMs in AWS. So let's go with this T2 small. We are going over 1 core 2 GB RAM machine. So it will cost us $18, right? In Mumbai. So let's go to Azure. And we go to West India, which is Mumbai. We'll go to Linux. So it is costing something around $24. But if you take this discount, right, so it's costing you $15. So there are things, apart from this Linux machine. In Windows, if you go to Windows, there's a benefit called hybrid benefit. So it will reduce the cost more there. Licensing cost will be less. So these terms you'll slowly understand about hybrid benefit when we go into virtual machine creations. I'm just giving you overview of the pricing calculators what we have, right? And this machine size is 2 core 4 GB machine, and here what we have taken is a 1 core 2 GB machine. So you see 1 core 2 GB machine is costing us $18 here, and a 2 core 4 GB machine is costing us something far lesser than that. So you see, if you go pay as you go, it's costing 21, but if you take a reservation, it's costing $12, and if you go it's costing less, $7. Security wise, everyone has the security. As I said, in security, you have to understand by default, if you go onto cloud, you are not secure. There are things which you have to do, and there are things which the cloud providers takes, controls, does for you already. So if you go to, AWS certifications, Azure certifications, not the exam certifications. So you'll have all those things. So you'll see, all the certifications where Azure is compliant to. So these are all the certifications which Microsoft Azure is already compliant. The reason I am encouraging you guys to learn Azure first is because of the, in terms of employability, as well as in terms of, getting a good role in the enterprise. Okay. as I said earlier, right, AWS has a lot of resources already in the market. Okay, and there is a lot of resource crunch when it comes to Azure and GCP. When you're talking about pay wise, if you're clearly differentiating in terms of pay, which cloud consultant is earning more, then GCP consultants are earning more than any other cloud consultant, whether it's AWS or GCP, because I have seen that personally. But in terms of jobs, Azure and AWS have more jobs when compared to GCP. Okay, so I answered your first question. Other question was about the security. So you are already compliant, and there are a lot of security services available in Azure. If you just go to, as I said, in identity and access management, Azure has a lot of features. I'll just give you a basic example. We were about to cover all those things tomorrow. One is privilege identity management. So you manage all your privileged users with this service. Then you have identity protection. Then you have identity protection and conditional access. You can give access based on certain conditions. And you have security center in Azure. So all those things are there. These services are also, when it comes to identity management, as I said, Azure has more services when compared to the other cloud vendors. But similarly, there are similar kind of services to meet the required solution. So you have this conditional access, you have identity protection in terms of synchronizing your on-premise AD with Azure AD. You have Azure AD Connect services. So these services are already there for you. I hope I was able to answer your question.
Asif, I have one question.
Yeah.
I want to know, how are the users created in this Azure AD? Are they created automatically?
Yeah, you can. They are not created automatically per se. If you want them to get synchronized from your on-premise Active Directory, there is a way you can do. If you have already users created in your Windows Active Directory environment, then you can synchronize those users to Azure AD, or else you can bulk upload, or you can create them individually. You can do that. You can just go. I'll just walk you through that. So you just go to users and you create a new user, and that's how the user gets created. You just create them, and you can have domains created, multiple domains also. All these things we'll learn tomorrow. And the other option is you can you have to you can bulk upload, bulk create all your users. So it will give you a CSV file. You just type, give all the user names and everything. So you can create in that way. And once you have created, by default, you do not have access to anything. For you to do that, you have to give them permissions to access resources on Azure. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other question, guys? Okay, then you can. I hope you guys are already in the. Yeah, you had any question? Okay. So we are already in groups. If you have any question, you can type in that. I'll try to answer those in the group, or I'll answer it tomorrow. And let's meet tomorrow, and we'll continue from there. Then take care, guys. Thanks a lot for joining, and see you tomorrow.
The WhatsApp group is actually for admins only at the moment, so I don't think we can put in any comments there.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was not aware about
that. We'll request the admin to open it for the users as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Then take care. Bye.
Thanks, Asif. Bye. Thanks for the nice information. We'll meet up tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.